Picture gospel music's most cherished sibling duo, BeBe and CeCe Winans, returning to the stage together after years of quiet rumors about family rifts, and now, Marvin Winans finally speaks out, exposing the real reason they stepped away, and the heartbreaking secret that almost shattered the entire Winans family. Believe me, you'll want to catch every shocking detail. When it comes to gospel royalty, one name has echoed through the generations: the Winans. With their powerful harmonies and soul-stirring lyrics, BeBe and CeCe Winans were more than just singers, they were icons. But beyond the glimmering spotlights and golden microphones, a much deeper story has been unfolding, one filled with silence, distance, and now a surprising reunion that's got the entire gospel community buzzing. So what truly happened between BeBe, CeCe, and Marvin Winans? How did this once inseparable musical family grow so distant that Marvin now claims he was left behind? And what's really behind this unexpected return from BeBe and CeCe in 2025? In today's video, we're taking you behind the curtain into the raw truths the public never knew. From subtle family struggles to the weight of the music industry, and yes, even spiritual clashes, you won't believe the road that led to this emotional turning point. And what Marvin finally admits. It completely rewrites what you thought you knew about gospel's most famous family. Stay with us, because by the time we reach the end of this story, you'll discover not only what reignited BeBe and CeCe's comeback, but also the heavy emotional burden Marvin Winans has carried in silence for years. And trust me, this is where things get real. Before the silence, before the family drifted apart, there was brilliance. The Winans didn't just join the gospel scene, they revolutionized it. At the center of that revolution stood three unforgettable voices: BeBe, CeCe, and Marvin Winans. During the 1980s, when gospel music was still deeply rooted in its traditional roots, BeBe and CeCe shattered boundaries. When their debut album Heaven dropped in 1988, it hit the scene like a spiritual shockwave, fusing R&B, soul, and gospel in a way no one had ever dared. Suddenly, they were everywhere, from Christian radio to Billboard charts, even breaking into mainstream stages. CeCe's pure, angelic soprano blended flawlessly with BeBe's rich, soulful voice, creating a sound that was more than music, it was a movement. Meanwhile, Marvin Winans, their older brother, had already earned his title in gospel greatness. As a member of the legendary Winans group, he had collected Grammys, a mountain of Dove Awards, and the respect of gospel traditionalists for preserving both the sacred sound and the purity of the message. Marvin Winans was seen as the traditionalist, the preacher's voice, the spiritual cornerstone. Together, Marvin, BeBe, and CeCe weren't just a family trio, they were foundational to a musical dynasty that stood for more than fame. They embodied faith. Church communities turned to them not only for music, but for worship, encouragement, and a glimpse of God's grace. But with recognition comes pressure, and success within a family can sometimes plant the earliest seeds of division, and that's precisely what began to unfold. But here's the twist no one could have predicted. The separation wasn't just about music. Insiders say the distance became deeply personal, not just professional. And Marvin? He saw it happening, and more than anyone else, he felt it. As the 1990s arrived, the allure of solo careers started calling to BeBe and CeCe. Though they had always stood side by side as a duo, the weight of the industry slowly began, steering them down individual paths. CeCe, in particular, emerged as a powerful solo star, bursting onto the scene with her stunning solo debut. Her album, Alone in His Presence, brought home multiple awards and made her a beacon of strength for women in gospel music. Meanwhile, BeBe was taking a different lane. He leaned further into mainstream R&B, weaving his gospel foundation into more contemporary sounds. His solo work often featured collaborations with artists outside the gospel genre. It was daring, no doubt, but not everyone embraced the change, especially not Marvin. According to gospel experts and those close to the family, Marvin began to express his unease, not to the public at first, but quietly behind the scenes. A firm believer in preserving traditional gospel, Marvin stood by the idea that the sacred message should remain untouched. Reports suggest he worried that BeBe and CeCe's artistic direction, while musically innovative, was straying too far from the spiritual values they were all raised with. And this is where things begin to cut deep. For Marvin, this wasn't just a matter of creative differences. He saw it as a break from their spiritual foundation. In a now well-known sermon delivered at Perfecting Church in Detroit, Marvin made veiled references to people who use gospel music for applause rather than true worship. He didn't name anyone, but the timing of his remarks raised eyebrows, and many believed he was indirectly pointing at his siblings. Even more striking was what happened next. That same year, BeBe and CeCe were notably absent from the church's anniversary event, a celebration they had always attended front and center. Their absence didn't go unnoticed. And soon, the whispers turned into full-blown speculation. Fans began to ask, what's really happening with the Winans? Gospel forums were quickly overrun with theories. Were they clashing behind closed doors? Had they simply outgrown one another? Was it about fame, finances? Or maybe something even deeper? But this is where the story takes an even more emotional turn. Marvin, it's said, reached out privately in an attempt to reconcile, and what happened afterward left him heartbroken. For years, Marvin Winans chose silence as speculation spread and whispers circled throughout the gospel community. While the world questioned, Marvin said nothing. He kept preaching. He kept singing. He kept leading his congregation. But behind the sermons and smooth performances stood a man quietly bearing the pain of separation, not just from the gospel industry, but from his own family. That silence finally came to an end in 2025, during a raw and heartfelt appearance on the Faith and Family podcast. In his own words, Marvin said he had to speak, not to wound, but to begin healing. What he revealed sent shockwaves throughout the gospel world. With a voice full of emotion, Marvin shared, BeBe and CeCe, they've always had the gift, but somewhere, somehow, the calling got buried beneath the noise. I reached out. I tried to stay close, he continued. But they left me a long time ago, and it wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. His words weren't filled with rage. They were soaked in sorrow. He didn't shame them, he longed for them. According to Marvin, he faced years of unanswered calls, ignored invitations, and sidestepped conversations. He spoke of time spent trying to reunite the family, not only to sing together again, but to minister side by side. One of the most heart-wrenching moments came when Marvin described planning a Christmas gathering for the entire Winans family. Everyone came except BeBe and CeCe. No explanation, no reply, just silence. That night, I watched their old performances with my grandkids, Marvin said. I smiled because I'm proud of them. But deep down, I was hurting because those voices, they're not just famous voices, they're family. I miss them. He went on to say that gospel music success can be a double-edged sword. It gives you power, platform, and praise. But if you're not careful, it can steal what matters most, your real connections, your spiritual center, even your family. Yet, Marvin's words weren't just laced with grief. They carried forgiveness too. I don't hold anything against them, he said, but I had to stop pretending like everything was fine. Because sometimes, silence is louder than a scream. That single interview opened a door that had long been sealed shut. Gospel blogs exploded. Comment sections overflowed with prayers, opinions, and raw emotion. Some rallied behind BeBe and CeCe, others stood with Marvin. The split was no longer just inside the Winans family. It had gone public. But what happened next? Nobody could have predicted. Just days after Marvin's emotional interview aired, BeBe and CeCe made an unannounced appearance at a gospel concert in Atlanta. And what they did in that moment, well, it left everyone in the room and those watching from home completely speechless. It was July 6, 2025, an evening that began like any other at the Atlanta Praise Festival, a sold-out gospel celebration featuring some of the biggest stars in the genre. But what unfolded in the final hour of that night caught even the event organizers completely off guard. As the MC prepared to announce the closing act, the house lights suddenly dimmed. A lone spotlight lit the stage. And then came the unmistakable voice of CeCe Winans. Count it all joy, even when it seemed so hard to smile. The audience froze, phones flew into the air, screams erupted. Tears began to stream, but the moment truly turned unforgettable when BeBe Winans stepped out right behind her, blending his voice in perfect harmony as if no time had passed at all. The room exploded into a standing ovation, not just for the music, But for what that performance represented, this was the first time in over 7 years that BeBe and CeCe stood side by side on stage. But even more significant, it was the first public hint that they might have heard Marvin's cry. And the surprises didn't stop there. Midway through the performance, as the choir softened and the instruments fell back, BeBe stepped forward and took the mic, delivering a message no one was prepared for. "Before we close," he began, "we want to say this moment isn't only about the music, it's about healing. We know people have been talking, and yes, we've been distant. Sometimes life takes you so far, you don't even notice how far you've gone. But tonight, we're not just coming back to the stage. We're coming back to our family." Then, CeCe delivered a line that shook the gospel world. "We love you, Marvin, we always have. And we hear you." The audience gasped. They weren't invoking his name for applause, they were speaking it to make peace. But Marvin wasn't sitting in the audience that night. In fact, he hadn't even been invited to the event. According to a source close to the Winans circle, Marvin watched the entire performance from his home in Detroit, tears running down his face as it all unfolded live. Later, he posted on Instagram, "Sometimes reconciliation begins with a song. I'm listening, no hashtags, no long captions. Just a raw, heartfelt message, proof that the moment had reached him." Still, not everyone was convinced. Some critics online claimed the reunion felt more like a publicity stunt than an authentic step toward restoration. Others noted that BeBe and CeCe hadn't directly addressed Marvin's emotional podcast confession. Was this truly a return to family, or was it a staged moment for cameras and gospel press headlines? But that wasn't the end of the story. Because what happened backstage after the performance revealed even deeper layers to this emotional saga. Layers that include a deeply personal phone call, a heartfelt letter, and a powerful invitation Marvin still hasn't responded to. The Atlanta Praise Festival had come to a close. The audience had exited, the lights had dimmed, but beyond the stage, behind roped-off security and velvet curtains, a much more private and emotional moment was quietly taking place, a scene no fan witnessed. No camera captured it. After their powerful performance and emotional words dedicated to Marvin, CeCe sat alone backstage in the dressing room, pen in hand, Bible resting beside her. A witness who chose to remain anonymous but spoke to Gospel Truth Weekly said CeCe appeared shaken and deeply contemplative. That night, she wrote a handwritten letter addressed to Marvin. The full contents of the letter haven't been made public, but family sources say it was raw, a vulnerable reflection on what had been lost over the years. A heartfelt appeal to restore a relationship that fame, tight schedules, and spiritual differences had quietly broken down. She poured her soul into it, said one source. It wasn't for attention and it wasn't for publicity. It was just for Marvin. They added, she said things in that letter she hadn't spoken in decades. BeBe also made an effort to reach out that same night. After the show, he tried calling Marvin directly. The call went to voicemail, but rather than leave a message, BeBe followed up with a simple personal text. "We're ready when you are. Let's talk. We miss you." Marvin didn't reply right away. Insiders say he needed time, space to reflect. Not just on the public gestures, but on the private wounds that had quietly festered over the years. The next day, CeCe's handwritten letter was sent by courier to Marvin's home in Detroit. 3 days later, Marvin was seen walking into Perfecting Church, that same letter folded, worn, and tucked carefully inside his Bible. He didn't mention it during his Sunday message. Not a single word. But those in attendance say something in his spirit had clearly shifted. One church member described his presence as lighter, like a heavy burden had finally been lifted. Still, the journey wasn't over. In a follow-up interview on a local gospel radio station, Marvin confirmed he'd received words of peace from BeBe and CeCe, but also made it clear, healing isn't instant. It's not a concert, it's not a headline, it's a process. But I'm open. Now I wasn't before. And maybe, just maybe, that's where God was trying to get me all along. Marvin also hinted at something major on the horizon, a potential family worship night, planned for fall 2025, a reunion that wouldn't just feature BeBe and CeCe, but the entire Winans family, including Marvin's children and CeCe's daughter Ashley. Still, fans remain split. Some are filled with hope, flooding social media with prayers, praise hands, emojis, and joyful posts calling the reunion a divine breakthrough. Others remain hesitant, pointing to the years of silence, unresolved emotional distance, and the fact that, so far, no public sit-down or reconciliation has actually taken place between the siblings. At least, not yet. Still, one thing is undeniable: the silence has finally been broken. The first roots of reconciliation are now taking hold. Whether it's through a song, a sermon, or a heartfelt handwritten note, the Winans siblings have begun moving closer toward one another. And if this worship night truly takes place, it may be more than just a reunion. It could go down as one of gospel music's most healing and historic moments ever witnessed. But just when it feels like the story is reaching its final chapter, there's another twist. As whispers of reconciliation echo across gospel spaces, a fresh rumor is beginning to ripple through industry circles, fan forums, and gospel blogs. A reunion album. Not just a single on stage, not merely a symbolic performance, but a full-length, deeply personal collaboration between BeBe CeCe and Marvin Winans. And if the reports are accurate, this could be more than an album. It could be their final curtain call as gospel's most iconic family. Multiple sources within the industry, including one close to CeCe's management team, have confirmed that serious discussions are already in motion. The project, reportedly titled The Return, would mark the first time all three Winans siblings have recorded together in nearly 20 years. The album's concept? A musical journey that tells their full story: the rise, the fall, the silence, and the reconciliation. One producer, who spoke anonymously, described it like this: "Isn't just music, it's ministry, it's confession, it's closure." If everything holds true, the album is expected to blend classic gospel roots with modern production, drawing from Marvin's traditional pulpit power, CeCe's soaring worship ballads, and BeBe's smooth R&B gospel fusion. But beyond the sound, it's the lyrics that matter most. Songs about forgiveness, about family, about spiritual distance, and even songs about regret. Rumors are also swirling about a potential Netflix docuseries to accompany the album, chronicling not just the recording sessions, but the emotional reunions and the long-buried conversations that finally saw the light of day. The working title? Winans, After the Silence. Even with the possibility of cameras and studio sessions, Marvin made one thing crystal clear during a recent sermon: "I'm not returning to the stage for applause. I'm coming back for alignment. If we do this, it won't be for the charts, it'll be for Christ." And that right there is the heartbeat of this entire story. Because behind all the accolades, the Grammy wins, the public smiles, and polished social media posts are three siblings raised not to perform, but to worship. Siblings who once stood shoulder to shoulder on Sunday mornings, sharing pulpits, microphones, and praise. Who, somewhere along the way, let the silence speak louder than their songs. But now, that silence is shattering. The calls are being returned. The letters are being read. And maybe, just maybe, the Winans family is writing its most powerful chapter yet. A chapter not written in platinum plaques, but in grace dots. So what can we learn from this? Too often, we look at gospel celebrities as spiritually untouchable. Above it all, immune to pain. But in reality, they're human. With scars, with pride, with purpose, and with the same aching need for healing that lives inside all of us. Whether or not the reunion album or Netflix special comes to pass, one thing is crystal clear: the work of reconciliation has already started, not for the press. Not for public praise. But for family. For the calling. For the faith. And maybe that's the real gospel message underneath it all. So what do you think? Was this a true moment of healing? Or just a perfectly timed gesture following Marvin's emotional confession? Do you believe BeBe and CeCe are genuinely ready to reconnect with Marvin and restore everything that's been broken over the years? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading every single one. If the story of family, faith, and forgiveness moved you, hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe for more deep dives that go beyond the headlines. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even the deepest wounds can still heal. And if that reunion album really does drop, you'll hear it here first. Until then, stay bold, stay blessed, and stay tuned.